A doctor grieves after the death of a 19-year-old patient. Death is common in healthcare and families fall apart. That is expected. Often hidden and less expected is that sometimes staff also fall apart. All healthcare staff will have a patient whose loss they feel keenly. Some will have many. They feel responsible, angry, helpless, sad, and sometimes guilty. To keep going, they find ways to protect themselves. Yet to deliver compassionate care, staff need to keep in touch with their own humanity.
Schwartz rounds were set up to support staff to do this. They offer staff time and space in a busy, fast-paced environment to come together to discuss openly and honestly the ethical, social and emotional aspects of their work. So how do they work? Drawing on over 2 years of research, uniquely we have identified 4 stages to rounds. Some of these go on behind the scenes. The first stage is identifying organisational stories and a diverse range of staff willing to share their experiences. In stage 2, they craft their stories in panel preparation. A skilled facilitator hears a raw, uncut version of what happened and uses careful questioning to identify Schwartz gold, the essence of what makes a compelling Schwartz round story. Engaging listeners through emotions and connecting people to a story that resonates and situates staff experience centre stage. Good panel preparation helps panellists decide what and how much to safely share, and how to tell stories that resonate, paint pictures and transport listeners to a scene.
When I was first asked to tell my story, I prepared a script and read it to the facilitator. But when I read it, she said it sounded too dry and academic. Whereas she said, when you just tell the story, it comes alive. She helped me to think about why I was visiting this gentleman. What happened? What was I expecting? And what was I feeling on that day? So that's what I did on the day of the round. I went in and I just told the story exactly as it had happened. And it was as if I was back there with this patient. I could hear the clock ticking on the sideboard. I could just feel everything as if it was there. And when I looked round, other people, it was as if they were there as well. There was one woman just nodding. Another lady, she had tears in her eyes. Then there was this silence, a really sacred silence.
When I first set eyes on Jake, it was like looking at a wounded animal. You could feel the fear. I did my best to deal with his pain, but I felt completely inadequate. That weekend I was going away with friends, something that's usually fun, but this time I took the sadness away with me. His dad's anger and frustration was causing disruption, and the nurses felt unable to care for them both. As Jake's pain got worse, we all felt increasingly anxious. Eventually, his dad had lost all faith in our ability to care for him, so the adult team took over Jake's care.
I've heard how difficult the pediatric ward had found it. If they couldn't make a difference, how could I? Junior nurses worried about caring for Jake when I wasn't around. In hindsight, I could have managed their concern better, but my time was spent juggling difficult conversations. I should have given them more support. Every day was like walking on eggshells. I felt I wasn't doing much clinically. Most of the time I was managing his dad's expectations. Often he was very angry, which was nerve-wracking. But he just wanted what was best for Jake. I have a son his age and I'd want the same.
This was one of the 3 most difficult cases in my consultant career. I didn't gel with Jake's dad. All my usual tactics didn't work. A few days before Jake died, I wasn't feeling very well. If I could have stayed at home, I would have, but by the time I got in, it was clear he was dying. I was talking to a colleague and said, "People feel unsafe around Jake's dad." I didn't realise he was standing behind me. He asked me why I'd said that. It was awful. I would never have wanted him to hear that, but realistically that's how people felt. They felt scared of him. I was scared of him. I could barely speak. I've never felt so awful about anything. I don't remember how I drove home. When my colleague telephoned to say Jake had died, I collapsed. I couldn't work that day. I had to go home. I felt sick. I couldn't eat, sleep. It was a horrible mistake. I tried my hardest to help that family.
Thanks for sharing that. I think, one of the things about grief is anger. Jake's dad was angry, and this was his way of grieving, and it wasn't you that was doing badly. It was a combination of things. It was a very aggressive disease and a father grieving.
And can I just say, we're only human and we all make mistakes. Something very similar happened to me when I was working on a ward when this patient overheard me.
Good facilitation and the creation of a safe space support staff to disclose stories revealing difficult, demanding and satisfying aspects of their work. When staff show their human and vulnerable side, it breaks down barriers and creates a level playing field for all staff. The group interaction and hearing multiple perspectives creates recognition of shared experiences and feelings, providing greater insights into patient, carer and staff behaviours. Rounds shine a spotlight on hidden organisational stories and roles and provide opportunities for reflection and resonance so staff can make sense of their experiences at work. Rounds have a cumulative effect. Over time, a Schwartz savvy audience develops who can support the facilitator to ensure safety and containment, build trust and a supportive community. Staff who attended rounds reported having increased empathy and compassion for colleagues and for patients, reduced feelings of isolation, and improved teamwork and communication. At the beginning of our study, a third of staff in our survey reported poor psychological well-being before attending any rounds. When we resurveyed the same group 8 months later, there was little change in staff who hadn't attended rounds. However, in staff who attended rounds, the proportion with poor psychological well-being had halved. While Schwartz rounds do not set out to solve problems, we identified examples of changes in practice such as the revision of protocols based on rounds discussions. Rounds offer a unique countercultural space where staff experience is the priority, emotional disclosure is encouraged, and staff support and listen to each other without judgment. In this space, hierarchies are flattened, defences are left at the door, and humanity is revealed.